What would you do if you came across a little girl shivering barefoot, standing alone on the side of a freezing road, clutching nothing but a worn red suitcase? Would you stop? Rowan Bennett wasn't meant to. He had specific orders, a strict schedule, and a boss who would dismiss him without hesitation for being late. Yet, something in the child's eyes, wide, terrified, and silent, made him hit the brakes hard and alter everything. He had no idea what her name was, didn't know why she stood alone, and certainly didn't realize that a powerful secret capable of destroying one of the most dangerous men in the city lay inside her suitcase. This isn't merely a tale of kindness. It's a narrative of courage and corruption, illustrating how a single choice can completely change a life. Stay with us until the end, for what's concealed in that little red suitcase will astound you. It was just past dusk, and the gray sky threatened snow as Rowan Blake drove his black SUV through the outskirts of Ashwood County. He was running late again. His boss, Everett Dane, a powerful and impatient real estate magnate, had made it clear, be outside the office precisely at 7:30 or don't bother come in. Rowan was already 12 minutes late. Gritting his teeth, he pressed the gas. That's when he spotted her, a small figure on the desolate road, barely illuminated by the headlights. Rowan hit the brakes so hard that his seat belt locked against his chest, and the SUV skidded slightly on the icy pavement before halting just a few feet from the girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. Her coat was 2 sizes too small for the weather, and her cheeks were blotched a purplish red from the cold. In her tiny hands, she gripped a crimson suitcase, an odd, vintage thing with brass corners and faded stitching. Rowan blinked. Was he really witnessing this? The girl stood perfectly still, wide-eyed as if frozen not only by the cold but by something deeper, perhaps fear or loneliness. Rowan looked around. No adults, no houses nearby, just trees, fog, and silence. His instincts urged him to keep driving. Everett was going to fire him for being late again, but Rowan's conscience shouted louder. He put the SUV in park and stepped out into the cold. "Hey," he called gently, aiming not to frighten her. "Are you okay?" The girl did not respond. She merely clutched the suitcase tighter. Rowan approached her slowly. "Where are your parents?" Still no answer, just wide, tear-filled eyes that seemed to have witnessed too much for someone so young. "Okay," he said softly. "How about we get you out of the cold? My car is warm. I can help." She didn't speak, but her lip trembled, and after a moment, she offered the faintest nod. Rowan gingerly took her hand. It felt like ice. She climbed into the back seat of his SUV, still holding onto the suitcase. He cranked the heat up and watched her shiver in silence. "What's your name?" he asked once they began driving. "Ellie," she whispered. "Ellie, what a lovely name." "I'm Rowan," he said, smiling in the mirror, trying to comfort her. "Do you know where your mom or dad is?" She paused. "They said they'd come back, but they didn't." Rowan's stomach twisted. She sounded abandoned. He glanced at the clock. 7:41 p.m. Everett was definitely going to fire him. He knew it, but at that moment, this wasn't a choice to make anymore. "All right, Ellie," he said. "We'll figure it out. First, let's get you somewhere warm." He made a sharp right turn, heading toward a small diner he used to frequent for coffee. It wasn't far, and he was familiar with the staff. Hopefully, they would understand. Inside the diner, the warmth enveloped him like a comforting blanket. Rowan ordered hot chocolate for Ellie and a black coffee for himself. Ellie sat across from him in the booth, her legs swinging above the floor, her suitcase resting beside her like a loyal guard dog. She still hadn't let it go. Rowan couldn't help but notice her gaze, which darted around the diner, taking in every person with a mix of awe and suspicion, as if she wasn't certain if she was allowed to feel safe. "Do you want to tell me what's in the suitcase?" he asked softly. Ellie shook her head. "My mom said not to let anyone open it. Ever." "Okay." He nodded. "We won't open it unless you want to." She took a sip of her cocoa, her small hands wrapped tightly around the mug. Rowan pulled out his phone and hesitated. He should call the police. It was a sensible thing to do, but something inside him insisted. "No, not yet." The girl was terrified. What if she ended up in foster care before her mom was even reported missing? And that suitcase, it wasn't just a bag of clothes. It held meaning for her. Clearing his throat, he asked, "Do you remember your address? A phone number? Anything?" Ellie shook her head again. They said it was dangerous to talk. Rowan blinked. Who said that? She didn't answer. She just looked down. Okay, that was a red flag. He paid the bill, gave the waitress a generous tip, and escorted Ellie back to the car. She looked like she could fall asleep any moment, her little frame trembling with exhaustion. He was aware he couldn't drive her around all night, and he couldn't leave her. Rowan made a decision. He was going to take her to his apartment, just for the night until he figured out what to do next. He was uncertain if it was legal or wise, but it felt like the right thing to do. Back at his modest one-bedroom in North Ridge, Ellie tiptoed inside as if she'd never been in a home before. Rowan handed her one of his oversized hoodies and a clean pair of socks. She looked silly in them, but finally warm. He made a small bed for her on the couch with extra blankets. As he turned to leave the room, she called out, "Rowan," stopping him. "You're not going to leave me, are you?" His heart twisted. "No, Ellie," he said, kneeling beside her. "I promise I'm not going anywhere." She smiled the first time, a fragile little smile that nearly broke him. That night, as Rowan sat in the kitchen, his phone buzzed. It was Everett Dane. "Boss, you're done, fired. Don't bother showing up tomorrow." Rowan sighed and deleted the message because at that moment, there was a girl with a crimson suitcase asleep on his couch. And something deep inside told him her story was only beginning. The following morning unveiled a heavy fog that wrapped North Ridge's streets in a blanket of secrets. Rowan stirred awake in his recliner, his neck sore from sleeping upright. He blinked against the feeble light filtering through the blinds. Listening in silence, he walked into the living room, his heart racing. But Ellie was still there, curled up on the couch beneath the blankets, her tiny arms tightly wrapped around the crimson suitcase. She resembled a child who had learned early that comfort was a fleeting notion. Rowan knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair off her cheek. She stirred slightly but didn't wake. That's when he noticed her lips were dry, and her cheeks had the faintest flush. She was running a fever. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. He didn't have a thermometer, but he didn't need one to ascertain that the child needed help. An hour later, they arrived at a nearby clinic, where Rowan had to complete paperwork as if he were her guardian. Fake name. No insurance. No ID. The nurse frowned but eventually waved him through. Ellie sat quietly on the exam table, her gaze fixated on a cartoon playing silently on the corner TV. The doctor was kind. After some tests, he handed Rowan a bottle of antibiotics and a warning. "She's undernourished," he said in a low voice. "Looks like she's been out in the cold too long. She's lucky you found her when you did." Rowan nodded but remained silent. When they returned to the apartment, Ellie's fever had subsided, and she seemed more alert. Rowan made her oatmeal and turned on an old animated movie. She giggled at the comical characters, but never once released her hold on the suitcase. Rowan sat beside her, sipping his coffee. "Ellie," he said carefully, "I understand your mom told you to keep the suitcase safe, and I respect that. But if there's anything in it that could assist us in finding her, perhaps we should take a look together." She looked down, silent. "I just want to help." Rowan added, "You trust me, right?" After a moment, she hesitated and then offered the smallest nod. "Okay," she whispered, "but just me and you." She slid the suitcase toward her and turned the dial of the combination lock. 17. Click. Inside, nestled among clothes, a toothbrush, and a sketch pad, was a thick yellow envelope. Rowan carefully opened it. Inside were multiple documents. A copy of a birth certificate, Ellie's, her mother's name, Nenelaer, with no father listed. There were also bank statements, some signed legal agreements, and, chillingly, a notarized letter addressed to whoever finds this. Rowan read aloud, "If you're reading this, I may not be alive. My name is Nenelaer, and I work for a company called Marlowe Partners. I uncovered documents showing illegal transactions, embezzlement, and human trafficking concealed under a property development shell. I was told to keep quiet. I didn't. If anything happens to me, please protect my daughter. Ellie, the man behind this is Everett Dane. Rowan's heart dropped. Everett Dane, his boss, his former boss. He read the name over and over, hoping it was a coincidence. But there was no mistake. Nina Lair had named him clearly. He stared at Ellie. This little girl hadn't simply been abandoned. She had been hidden. Suddenly, everything clicked. The fear, the secrecy, the reason her mom had instructed her not to talk. And now that Rowan had taken her in, he was part of this too. He placed the papers back into the envelope and looked at Ellie. Do you remember where you last saw your mom? Ellie's eyes welled with tears. She was talking to two men. They yelled. Then she told me to go with the lady. She said she'd come back, but she didn't. Do you know the lady's name? Ellie shook her head. She had red shoes. That's all I remember. Not much to go on. But Rowan now had a name, Everett Dane, and a decision to make. He spent the rest of the day researching Marlowe Partners. It wasn't difficult to find. It was Everett's holding company, the same one to which Rowan had driven clients for years, a name that adorned construction sites and luxury condos alike. That night, Rowan reached out to an old friend, Detective Sasha Moreno, someone he hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Sasha, I need to talk. I found something, someone. Rowan, her voice tightened. Is this about that missing kid on the news? The little girl with no ID? We got an alert from Child Protective Services. It's her, he said. But you can't report her yet, not until I tell you everything. There was a pause. Then, I'm listening. Rowan relayed everything, from how he found Ellie to the suitcase, the documents, and the name Everett Dane. At the end of the call, Sasha said only, meet me tomorrow and bring everything. But Rowan, be careful if this is what I think it is. You're both in real danger. The next morning, Rowan woke up early, but Ellie was not on the couch. Ellie, he called, receiving no answer. The crimson suitcase remained there, wide open, but the little girl was gone. He rushed to the hallway. The front door was unlocked. His heart raced as he then noticed it. Something had been scratched into the wood of the door, using a key or a nail. Too late. Thank you for watching the video. Do you think Rowan should trust Detective Sasha with the documents? Or is there someone else pulling the strings? Where do you think Ellie went? Let us know your theories in the comments. Rowan's pulse thundered as he dashed down the stairwell. Every floor felt like a maze of shadows, his heart pleading for just one sign, one sound indicating Ellie was still nearby. The message carved into the door echoed in his mind. Too late. He rushed outside, scanning the street, empty, no sign of a child, no red shoes, only cold air and distant sirens. Rowan immediately called Sasha. She's gone, he said, his voice trembling. There's a message scratched into the door. Too late. I don't know what it means. Rowan, listen to me. Sasha urged. This wasn't random. They found you. That message was meant for you. But how? He asked, panicking. I've been cautious. I didn't even, he paused, unless someone was already monitoring me. They were, Sasha confirmed. You poked the bear. Rowan, Everett Dane doesn't play games. If he's behind this, Ellie is in serious danger. We need to get her back. We will, she assured him, but we do this smart. Meet me in 30 at the precinct. Bring the documents. And Rowan, if you go off the radar now, she may disappear for good. 30 minutes later, Rowan entered the dim-back trance of the 9th precinct, gripping the crimson suitcase like a lifeline. Sasha was already waiting, her expression fierce, badge clipped to her belt. Follow me, she instructed, guiding him through a quiet hallway to a small, secured interview room. The moment the door closed, she locked it and pulled a file from her coat. We've been hearing whispers about Dane for years. She stated, money laundering, shell companies, offshore accounts, but never anything concrete. What you found? She pointed at the documents laid on the table. This could change everything. She picked up a bank ledger from the envelope and raised her eyebrows. This account is linked to a facility outside of town. Abandoned on paper, but still pulling electricity. What if they're holding her there? Rowan stood up, pacing. Then we go. No, I go. Sasha corrected him. You're too close. If you walk in there and they're armed, it's over. Rowan slammed his fist on the table. I'm not sitting this out. A long silence followed before Sasha exhaled. Fine, but we do this by the book. She tapped her phone and called for backup. An hour later, they arrived at a gated warehouse near the docks. The fog hung thick, muting every sound, every breath. For unmarked cars surrounded the perimeter, and officers crouched low, equipped with vests and radios. Sasha motioned to Rowan. You stay behind me. But Rowan's gaze was fixed on the building. Something inside him insisted she was in there. Suddenly, a soft thump echoed from the side wall. Wait, Rowan said. That sound is a suitcase. Ellie's suitcase had that distinct latch. That's hers. Before Sasha could intervene, Rowan sprinted toward a side door. It creaked open. Inside the warehouse was dimly lit, the walls lined with crates and machinery, the air thick with dust and dread. Ellie, he called. No answer, but then a sob, a small, trembling sound. He rushed toward it, and there she was, curled in a corner, hands bound, mouth gagged, but her eyes wide with recognition, her face illuminated with joy the moment she saw him. Rowan dropped to his knees, tearing the ropes away. You're safe now, he whispered. I'm here. But just as he lifted her into his arms, a voice emerged from the shadows. Well, you're more persistent than I thought. It was Everett Dane, stepping forward in an immaculate suit with cold eyes, a pistol dangling from his hand like a casual threat. I warned Nina Lair, he continued, stepping closer. She was clever, hiding those documents, hiding the girl, but she underestimated how far I'd go. Rowan stood, shielding Ellie with his body. Let her go. She's merely a child. She's evidence. Everett sneered, the last loose end. But before he could take another step, bang, a single gunshot echoed through the warehouse. Everett staggered, eyes wide, as Sasha emerged from behind a pillar, gun still smoking. Dropped the weapon. Dane, it's over. He crumpled to the floor as officers rushed in, while Ellie clung to Rowan's chest, sobbing quietly. They were safe. 3 weeks later, Ellie was smiling once more, running barefoot through the small garden behind Rowan's building, chasing butterflies. Her laughter was soft yet genuine, a sound that had once felt impossible. Nina Lair had been found alive but injured in a safe house, now recovering from everything she had endured. Rowan had taken temporary custody of Ellie while the system figured itself out. But to her, he wasn't temporary. He was her hero, her family, and every time he gazed into her eyes, he felt it too. One small decision, one stop on the side of the road, had rewritten both their destinies. That night, they sat together on the porch. Ellie held the crimson suitcase on her lap. I think I'm ready to let it go, she said. Are you sure? Rowan asked. She nodded. I don't need it anymore. I have you. Rowan smiled, a tear escaping down his cheek. And I'm never letting you go. Thank you for watching the video. What are your thoughts on this story? Did it move you? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this story, comment 100 to show your support and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to know which country you're in. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. Who knows? It might remind someone never to ignore the quiet cry for help